This is the Book Deal Podcast,
where you will discover the inspiring stories of the authors behind your favourite books.
No matter what stage of writing you are at, we've got you covered. I'm Tina Strachan.
And I'm Madeline Cleary, and join us as we pull back the curtain of published authors.
One deal at a time.
The Book Deal Podcast acknowledges the traditional owners of the land and waters which it's recorded on, and pays respect to their elders past, present and emerging.
Hello, I'm Tina Strachan, and in this episode of The Book Deal, I am interviewing the hugely successful author-illustrator Dean Rankine. Many listeners will know Dean from his prolific back catalogue illustrating comics, or from his most recent series he not only illustrated but also wrote, called Death Metal Emo Elves. Some of you may not realise that you are familiar with his work until I read the list of his most well-known achievements in the interview. I know you would have heard of at least some of them, unless for some reason you have been hiding under a rock for the last 30 years and haven't heard of The Simpsons, Futurama, or Rick and Morty, or that little Australian celebrity called Magda Szubanski, and that's only scraping the surface. The episode is an absolute goldmine of top tips and advice, not just for author-illustrators trying to sign books as both, but Dean's advice about how to navigate the industry, how to make it profitable, and his inspiring work ethic will resonate with all creatives. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to the Book Deal, Dean Rankine.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
We are very excited to have you here on the show because you are going to offer something a little bit different to our other guests that we've had so far, because you're not only a writer of children's books, but you're also an illustrator of many more books, and you have even achieved the pinnacle for many author illustrators, which is to illustrate your own books that you've actually written.
Yes, yeah.
So that's incredible.
Right. That's been quite the journey to get to that point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So predominantly, I'm an illustrator.
Mm-hmm.
I come from the illustration. It was all I wanted to do as a kid. I wanted to draw. I never knew exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to draw pictures, whether it would be in animation or kids' books or comics. And in some ways, it's always still like that, still very fluid. And I'm still working mainly between comic books and kids' books is now where both my focuses kind of are, and I work in that conjunctively, but in saying that though, I've also always written. It's not like out of my skin, people go, "Oh, you're right." You go, "Well, yeah." You kind of like as kids, you always write, and I always imagined myself, maybe writing my own picture books. And certainly when it comes to comics, I've written a lot of the comics that I've illustrated. I just think I'm better known as an illustrator, and I think I'm a better illustrator than I am as a writer. But it's not stopping me from doing it anyway.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it's something that you've always wanted to do. So this is like achieving a bit of a dream for you.
Oh yeah. I think I never wanted to. I never wanted to do it. I was a really shy kid, painfully shy. I talked funny, really sort of anxious, but by drawing, it was like that was the thing that I had this sort of positive feedback from. So I'm very much a praise monkey.
Mm-hmm.
So when people, you're so, when you're a kid, so you're so good at that, and you go to for me as a kid, you go, I'm so good at that. That's the thing I'm good at. Like, I'm bad in sports. I'm bad in everything else, but this is what I'm good at, and I clung to that. Looking back, I wasn't good. I was no sort of child prodigy or anything like that. I think it was maybe above average. But sometimes, it was just a passion, just all I wanted to do. And any other thing is just, I don't know, even now, I don't want to really do anything else. I just like to draw.
That's incredible. And what a good passion to have that you can, and that it's something that you can do anywhere, anytime, isn't it? Just practicing.
Absolutely. Yeah. That, we talked about AI very briefly before starting the show. And I think that's why one of the reasons I hate AI so much. So we're talking about generative like AI that creates pictures and that creates writing and stuff. That because I feel like it's stealing. It's not only stealing, but it's stealing from future generations the opportunities that I had finding myself, because by doing art, that's how I found myself. That's my therapy. That's my passion. That's what I kind of live for.
Mhm.
And to have that taken away for the next generation, and that's what AI is basically doing,
Mm.
is a tragedy. So yeah, I feel very strongly about that. Yeah, because like I'm 53, I'm kind of like entering my awesome period of being an illustrator writer. And so I just, I think I'm going to be okay. Like I'll
Mm.
weather this storm. I've got a history behind me. I've got connections. I can do lots of different things. But the up and coming people, though, I think they're going to particularly struggle with the changing scape of the creative industries.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a worry, isn't it? Even my
Mm,
children, I didn't realize, but I don't know where they've got it from, or my eldest anyway. Like um, it must have come from somewhere, right? Because he was doing it well before I even kind of knew about it, like using those sort of AI generators as actual research, as a research tool.
mm, mm,
And which, I mean, in an ideal world would be fantastic if you could, like, you're Googling something to do your research, as you do as like a uni student, or when you're researching a topic for a book.
yeah.
And it just, brings it up, and it's in this really easy way for them to understand and to read, right? But it's not really right. But they,
So
for
right.
some reason, and they're so young, and they just think this
Yeah.
is this
This
is
is also
this is
this is fact
right.
as well. Yeah, and you
Yeah.
see it in these AI generate they have biases, and
Yes.
they're not actually just giving you the facts.
Yeah.
They're going by very strong bias in regards to the information that they're gleaming from it.
Hmm.
So it's troubling.
It's
We're
scary.
not going to be able to believe the videos we watch. We're not going to be able to believe the things that we're reading.
Mm.
So yeah, I think it's going to hit it in all kinds of ways that we don't even realize. So yeah. Yeah. I do always say we shouldn't talk about this because it makes me so upset, and it's such a downer. And I know the show isn't
Hmm.
just like a big downer, but yeah, it does concern me.
Yeah, and I think, I think that's something that's very concerning for all authors and illustrators, isn't it? And yeah, we just got to
Absolutely.
band together to, join forces to try and hold it
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, just kind of just really quickly on it, like I,
Mm.
I know sort of like new authors and stuff like that. I think it's
Mm.
very tempting to go, oh, we'll just get generated art on my book
Mm.
because then I don't have to pay for an artist.
Mm.
And I think you're shooting yourself in your own foot, but also it's just these generators that's based on stolen artwork,
Yeah.
and I think morally we just can't justify it. I
Mm.
understand why people want to use it. Go, oh, this
Mm.
is my chance to get published. I just want to get published. I
Mm.
understand that.
Mm.
But it's just such an awful thing to do, an awful thing to undermine the illustrators in the industry and also yourself. It's like if you're choosing as a writer to use Chat GP or it is to write your own stuff, you're not writing shit. You're not.
Mm.
It's just yeah,
Yeah.
it's all
No,
crazy.
that's right. No, that's fair enough. And I think you can tell with images as well when things are AI.
Well,
And
yeah, at the moment we can. I
yeah.
think I can. I'm, I'm pretty good at spotting it, but
Mm.
it's starting to get to a point where it's harder,
Yeah.
you
It's only
know,
going to get better, isn't it? Mm.
because it's being generated, but then it's going through Photoshop, and they're fixing those little things that you'd normally be able to spot about, like how many fingers and
Yeah.
stuff like that. I just saw a video this morning about, and it was like videos of people, and I could tell every second one was AI, but it was
Yeah.
actually everyone was AI.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know what else I actually saw? Recently, was it one? I'm not going to say the name. One of the very famous shoe brands
Mm.
have created an ad that is 100% AI. So no models, but it's all people. So it's like any other ad that you see for shoes where it's got like athletes running and people dancing, not a single model, not a single artist really.
Artist,
And it was, I couldn't pick it.
yeah,
I
yeah.
wouldn't have
And
known. I wouldn't have known because they
this is
touch
the
those
thing.
videos up so much, right, to make them bright and light and glary. So they sort of
Anyway,
used to have
yeah,
that look about them anyway to make it look
so
like
they call
real
it
theatrical.
slightly surreal look anyway. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's worrying, things like all the the actors who make majority of their living from doing commercials, all that kind of stuff, the musicians, the cinematographers, all this kind of stuff, and you go, these images didn't just come from nowhere. Like, they've taken people's photos, they've like scoured the web, and I don't know why isn't more uproar from people go, you took our stuff. You took photos of our kids down the beach and you put them into this stuff. And you go, because you've added other stuff that you can't quite tell exactly who's who, they've gone away with the theft. So, Hey, viewers, we are going to get onto some good stuff. We're not going to be dwelling on this the whole time.
No, but I think it's really good because I think probably, there are a lot of people who don't understand that that's what it actually is, and it is taking from. And same with words. Like, you could say for, authors, put in, can you write me, a 50,000 word book on this, this, and this? And they're using words that actually other authors have written to train the program to write. So it is, maybe people just don't understand what it is actually, but that's
shit people. I don't know. It's just like,
they don't care. That's right.
Well, I don't care, and they're just awful. And I just think, as what about you as creatives? Like, we're talking about your book that came out just very recently, which is super exciting. For me to show my art and to show my stories, it's like you're kind of like cracking a bit of yourself, your chest open, right? You're cracking a little bit of yourself open, and you're showing the world. And if the world rejects it, right, it's kind of hard, because it's hard not to take it personally, because you are showing yourself, and you have to be brave, right? You have to be brave, and you're sharing this important little gem of yourself. And then what AI has done, you're taking the words that I've formed in my mind over years of experience, so that's my story, and now they've taken it and they're going to use it for their own evil, uses. That's awful. That's awful. It's such a betrayal. I think, and then for people then to readily accept it, and I'm deeply concerned it's going to be just more and more accepted. Oh, well, that's the way it is. We're just gonna, go on like that, But I'm still rallying against it. I feel like it's like we're throwing pebbles at a tsunami, trying to make it stop. But I don't think we're wrong.
No,
I don't think we'll win, right?
But you can't give up, right?
But I don't think we're wrong.
No, absolutely. Well, this is that's a whole nother episode that we should probably record.
I have to break this in two halves. Dean's rant about AI, that was 45 minutes, and then we'll do the fun stuff.
No, but it's great, and it's really relevant. I mean, the people who listen to the podcast are all, mostly aspiring authors and or even, seasoned authors and illustrators as well. So it's all very relevant and important. But I do have lots of other questions for you, Dean. So we have lots to unpack. And so I even asked some of my author-illustrator friends as well if they had any questions that they wanted to ask on sort of how you become an author-illustrator, how you get to do both, because that's the dream. But because I know you'll have so much success, so much advice for them. But I wanted to start by reading all the works that you have to your name. Actually, sorry, not all the works, because we don't have time for that. That's a whole other episode. But it's so impressive, Dean, and it needs to be acknowledged. And so for those listeners that may not be familiar with their work, I think once they hear the list, they'll most certainly know of at least a few. So so I guess some of your best known works, correct me if I'm wrong with any of these, or if, I'm going to leave out quite a few, but some of your best known works. So you've illustrated Magnus Sabansky's Timmy the Ticked Off Pony, Morris Gleitzman's Extra Time and Help Around the House, Brock the Croc, and there's going to be a Brock the Croc 2. Brock the
Croc 2, Make It Snappy, is in stores on 2nd of April.
Make It Snappy, that's great. 2nd of April, okay. On the first day of school, The Funny Thing That Happened to Simon Sidebottom series, The Mad Scientist, The Stuff Happens series, and you were also the author and illustrator of Can You Find the Easter Bunny, which is a year-round favourite in our house, I have to say. Mrs. Snitch is a Witch, and your most recent series, Death Metal Emo Elves. But that's not all. You're also an illustrator for many hugely well-known comics such as Simpsons, Rick and Morty, Futurama, and the Riverdale Diaries. All right.
Yeah.
So I think we've just taken up all our time with me going
Yeah,
through
yeah,
that list.
yeah,
But
yeah.
such an outstanding list of works, Dean, and many, many well-known titles and authors there that you're working with. But so Brock the Croc 2 coming out soon, but also the fourth installment coming out soon of Death Metal Emo Elves called
Elves.
Kingdom of Rock.
Yeah.
Love the title, love the book also, really funny. The kids love it. Can you tell us a little bit about the new book that's coming out?
Yeah. It's the fourth book. So Death Metal Emo Elves is about a group of elves. The original book is like in Elf World, everybody plays the polka. How do you describe the polka music? Right? Is the only music that that elves play, and this young elf named Emo. Through his grandmother, finds out that the elves used to rock. There was a performer named Elvish Paisley, I think I named him, who was a rock star, and he discovers that they used to rock and decides to form a death metal band. And so then and it goes from there. The insanity goes from there. Yeah, so each book has been slightly different, but each book you can kind of read on your own. It's not kind of rocket science. You can read book 4 if you want. Book 4 focuses more on individual band members and what happens during the day before band practice.
It's super fun, and it's I feel like there's a lot of yourself in that. Is it like
I think
it's
so. I think it's like one of those books that it's like I want to write this. This is like because comics wise, I've written for The Simpsons. I'm currently working on Rick and Morty, which is fantastic.
Mhm.
Um, but also you're kind of doing it for other people. It's not your stuff, right? Um, and in some ways, I would be like happily doing that forever, but work isn't always as consistent like that. So you have to kind of make your own stories. But to do Death Metal Emo Elves is like, I like the name, I like the concept, I like urban fantasy as a kind of genre, and I think it's fun. It's one of those books like you'll never see like there won't be a really big kid in their human child. It's just the elves, and they just live in elf world. And they might go to, I don't know, Candy Town or something like that, but they'll never sort of integrate, hit our world except for maybe a giant trash can that happens to be there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was one of the works I'm most proud of, I think. I tried, because I guess it's all about getting published, this podcast. Yeah, so I wrote it and shopped it around to I don't know how many publishers. So I'm reasonably connected with publishers because I've worked for Scholastic and Scholastic, 5 Mile, Random House as an illustrator. So naively, I thought it would be reasonably easy. This is so stupid of me because I know that they know me, they know my work. Go, hey, would you consider publishing something that I've written? And it was really hard. It was like nobody would say yes to it. And it's not like I haven't got credentials or even writing credentials, which mainly because in comics, but I've still written. So yeah, I tried everybody, and what I started to do was, okay, well, I'm going to draw it. I'm going to start drawing it. So every day I was working on other stuff. Every day I would do 1 page of illustrations on this. It was about 200 pages, something like that. Very, very heavily illustrated.
Mm.
I would do it like, and then I put on Instagram like each day. This is my this page, so people would start to actually see it come together. And I think in some ways start to get a fan base. Maybe I remember I think it was about page 70 something. I actually thought, is this stupid? Is this like really dumb thing to do to go? Am I like is this just a waste of time? But I kept pursuing and it kept sending it. So I would send it then to publishers with the illustrations, with how many illustrations I've had. So
Mhm.
again, really clearly go. You can see how the story. I don't think it was a bad story. I don't think it was the best story either, but it was pretty good, pretty solid. These are the illustrations, and eventually Redback Publishing, which is a small publisher in Sydney, said yes to it. And which was amazing. And which also what's really interesting about Redback is like they don't really, up to this point, they haven't really published books like this. They kind of do things like, I don't know, this like books about, say, Adelaide. This is Adelaide. Adelaide has a population of blah blah blah. That those kind of books, which is great, but it was not the kind of book that they would normally publish.
Yeah.
But also, fortunately, they said yes.
Yeah, well, I think everyone else is crazy not to, Dean. I think
Oh,
you've got such a
everybody should know.
yeah. So that's so good, though. So I just want to ask about that because a lot of people who are aspiring authors don't realize that published authors and even prolifically published authors like yourself still get rejected
all the time.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So all the time, and even if you think when I was. I'll come back to this story. Okay, first I'll finish off the Death Metal Emo Elves. So I kept going, and they said we would like to do more. We would like to have it to be a series. And originally I hadn't really thought about it being a series, but I think it's a young sort of junior fiction kind of book. I think you'd class it as. It's very very much a comic in some ways as well. I have to say, each page is basically a panel of a comic. So it's been kind of going on by there. It doesn't make much money, so I've had to. It's like we're talking about 200 illustrations per book, really. So that's sort of hard to like squeeze in. It's hard for me to say no to paid work that I know is going to make this makes money, but not a lot of money. We're kicking on. So book 4 comes out March, I think, and then I'll start to try to find a space in my schedule to do number 5. I would like to do like an ongoing thing with it. I enjoyed working on it. It'd be nice if it made more money. I did submit it to Adaptable. I think Adaptable is like I thought
Queensland Writers Centre.
Make a cool cartoon.
Yeah.
So to come back onto like your rejection thing, I really want to sort of emphasize that. So for me, that I have always been rejected. It's like this kind of it's the hustle and the grind of being a creative. You need to hustle for work constantly, and then it's like the grind to get it worked. You work it. I know this isn't books, but say for instance, my stuff on Rick and Morty, the publisher only they opened their books 5 more. I don't know how many years ago now. They opened their books. So I sent my resume in, resume, not really, like a portfolio in, and then they said, "Oh yeah, thanks for keeping on file." And then I reckon every maybe 4 to 6 months afterwards, I contacted them again, even maybe more, and said, "Oh, just checking in. Want to show you what we're working on now. Here's some new stuff." And then you slowly kind of like, you sort of chip away. You're always polite, and you don't. I would never send like things off that. You're not sending stuff off that you shouldn't be, like, to people who shouldn't be receiving it. Because I think that's really important. If there's I don't believe in not doing the submission process correctly. But so I got in. Then I got to do a cover, which was great. And then the company was sold. My editor left, and I think it was. I tried to send to the same email. Once again, here I am. And then I reckon it was maybe 5 years before they contacted again.
Wow.
And said, "Oh, we've got this comic that needs to get done. Would you be interested?" Really short time, and I said, "Yes, I'm interested." In the end, it was going to be, I would have had to pencil 2 pages a day and ink 1 page a day to hit deadline. Most comic artists can normally get a page a day done, right? But not 2. It's just, even for me, I'm reasonably fast because I'm very cartoony. But even then, I was not. Even though I said yes, I said this is going to be a struggle. And they ended up cutting it in half and getting another artist to do the second half, which worked real well for the comic. So then, since then, I've actually had progressively solid work with Rick and Morty since then. I've done a number of covers and a number of stories since then, which has been really great. But if I had gone, well, or if I had gone, well, I submitted stuff and they said they'll put me on file and then never heard back. If I had just accepted that, then I would not have got that work. So I'm all about being consistently contacting publishers. This is what I'm working on now. This is my new story. And look, if you send, how also, I don't know if this is okay, but when you submit a manuscript and they'll say, we'll get back to you in 9 months, right? Or whatever, 12 months or whatever within, I don't do that. I'll send it. Sometimes I might wait a couple of months, but otherwise I send it off to multiple publishers because I'm sorry, I understand that publishers are busy, but if I was seriously, I've had rejection letters. I had rejection letters for Death Metal Emo Elves for the first book, right, when the second one had already been out and published.
Wow.
That long.
Yeah.
And you go,
it's not reasonable, is it?
You've only got limited time on this planet. You have to be able to, I don't know if they come back and go, oh, we're swamped, we're going 3 months, we'll look at it and get back to you. No problem. But if it's like that kind of just open, 9 months or 12 months, we'll get back to you thing.
Or we won't get back to you. If you don't hear from us, just assume.
That's it. That's the thing. Just assume that we're not interested. I'm not doing it. I've got a list. I'm working. I wrote another book called Pineapple Comes to Pizza Town, right? So it's this pineapple comes to Pizza Town, and she's trying to make friends, and and she ends up, saving the day, and she's finally accepted into Pizza Town, right? But I've got a list. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It's actually out to. I've sent it over time. This is over a couple of years to 11 publishers, and I haven't heard back yet. I think it's a fun story. I think it's going to be cool, and it's going to happen. But you've got to be persistent.
I love that. Persistent, and not just with the sending it off to publishers, but with the writing or the illustrations. You just got to keep going, right? So do you think you just do it? You send it. Don't let that stop you. You just got to keep working on something else.
In the meantime, you work on your craft, right? You get better. I'm working on my craft. And I'm sending stuff off. But I'm not just just sitting around waiting for this to magically happen. I think I'm okay. I'm an okay writer and I'm an okay artist. But I think that, you talk about my credits. What has given me that stuff is because I'm super stubborn and crazy dogmatic because this is what I want. I want to do this. And I'll pursue that. And over time, I've become a better writer. I've become a better artist because of the work I've been doing in between. I haven't just been sitting in my laurels, but you have to be persistent. And I remember reading books about success in comics or success in illustration, and you get your first, you start to go, oh, you've worked on this. And then it solves your work, then it somehow magically snowballs. And I've never had a magical snowball effect, that suddenly now the work's coming in. Last couple of years I've been pretty solid, I have to say, but generally up until that point I still have to hustle for work. So things like something like working on The Simpsons was very was a big moment in my career. I was 38 before I scored The Simpsons, so I've been working all that time, so it was again not something magically happened. But I think so. What The Simpsons did for me is that when you send something off to someone, you say, I've worked on The Simpsons, people assume that you know what you're doing. And right, and that, so it doesn't guarantee, definitely doesn't guarantee anything, but it can crack that door open a little bit more. They'll go, they'll at least consider it. Go, worked on The Simpsons. Now I have to say, I was the worst Simpsons comic book artist. I have no doubt in my mind that I was the worst one who's ever existed. But my thinking is, right, there's some really, really good artists, right? But my thinking is, and always and continues to be, that you don't actually have to be the best, right? You just have to be good enough to be the worst.
Yeah.
Right. So do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If your kid wants to, they want to play AFL or something, they want to be the best. you don't have to be the best AFL. You just have to be good enough to be the worst of the AFL, because then you get to play the game.
Yeah.
And that's all I want to do.
Yeah.
Those
Well,
kids.
I have to
All I want to
say,
do is I
me
want to be
nor
able
the
to play the
kids.
game.
Yeah, we could like we've seen your comics that you've drawn for Simpsons, and they look great to me.
Oh,
They look perfect.
The early ones are real shaky. So
Can I ask a question about that? Because I've always wondered, and I guess, I mean, surely people know that there's multiple illustrators for, because there's no way that there's one person drawing all
right.
of that.
Right.
How do you, is that self-taught? Do you teach yourself just through lots of practice, or is there like a Rick and Morty school where you like train by someone?
Yeah. So I'm very cartoony, but I don't think this sounds too egotistical. I have a pretty good ability to ape other cartoony styles.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as it's cartoony enough, like I could never draw Batman, for instance. I cannot draw like that. It's just not me.
Mm-hmm.
But if something like Rick and Morty, something like Simpsons, then I have the capacity to mimic that style, because I can look at it and go, okay, this is it, right? So for the Simpsons, prior to the Simpsons, I was like indie artist, and I'd done some like magazine work and a couple of books, but my style, my anatomy was all over the place. Like people were quite fond of my style. There would be like eyes below eyes and this kind of really out there, right? But Simpsons, I'll tell you my story. I'll quickly tell you my Simpsons story about how it happened. Okay, so I know we're looking at time. This is going to be really bad.
No, it's great.
I was working on these kids magazines that used to be able to buy at the supermarket, and like K-Zone, Crash, D-Mag, that kind of thing. I was doing comics for those. They didn't pay particularly well, but I still wanted to draw comics. And the work dried up. So I went to Coles. I was at my night job. I went to Coles to see what was there. It was at the time that they would still sell some comic books at the supermarket. And I picked up a Simpsons. And it all looked amazing. The art looked really good. But there was one page that they'd got some kind of guest artist that was kind of really off model. And I thought, if I tried hard, I reckon I could just about draw as good as this guy here, right? Just barely as good as him. So at the time, you could actually submit. There was an email submission, which is unheard of, and you could submit your work to them. So what I did was I didn't show them. Here's my picture of Bart, right? Like, because my drawings of Bart are the average at best. But what I did do is like I sent them a 2-page comic. I drew Apu and a snake holding up the Quickie Mart. It's not good, and I don't know why they said but yeah. So spoilers, I don't know why they said yes to it, but yeah, I sent off, and I don't know if I heard anything back, and then I sent something off again, and they got back to me and go, oh yeah, we're going to use your work. So then I thought, great. So I would just send them stuff all the time. And so most of my work with Simpsons was like 2 4-page backup stories. So the stories at the back. So I would write them like gag stories, but there were the things that I wrote, and I would sit like fully formed stories. I would pencil, I would ink, and I would color, send the whole thing off. So then then they get like they had this space to fill, and I go, this is the guy to fill the space. So what they would then do, they would contact me and go, oh, so we've got this Krusty the Clown comic. We're after a 2-page story in the backup story. So great, because of the time difference, they're in the States. So then I get it here in Melbourne. So I would rough out stories like throughout the day on pencil and paper. So again, I'm predominantly more of a cartoonist than a writer. So I wouldn't write script. I would actually roughly draw the whole comic, but really super rough, to show them exactly what I had in mind. Because a lot of it was a visual gags. It's hard to sometimes write a visual gag. So I would send it off, and then it would be like magic. So they would send it off. So they'd send me an email. They'd go to bed. They'd wake up, and there'd be 8 stories that they could choose from. They can go, we'll do this one and this one.
Wow.
And then I'd pencil and ink it, and mostly color it. But then by the end of my tenure, they had someone else to color it. So on the what we're talking about, sort of mimicking styles and that kind of thing. So what I thought was like, if I'm going to get more work from them, I need to draw more like Simpsons. I need to be better. So over the time, I knuckled down not just my goofy versions of it, but more on model, and I got better and better over time. So I'm the only Australian to work on the comic book.
Wow,
Which is
that's
really cool.
incredible.
Yeah, so
But
it's
you're
really
like
cool. Yeah,
a
sorry,
dream
yeah.
illustrator for them.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah. So
they send an
it
email,
was
they wake up the next morning and here's
great.
like 8
It
comics.
was there. No, yeah, go, no problem. I can draw it. I can do it.
Yeah, that's
But yeah,
perfect.
so then it was like, it was nice to be able to be a writer and illustrator to in that context. They have a space to fill, and I can fill that space. There's this thick Simpsons how to draw book. It's like this, and it became my Bible. I would just flick through it, because you'd have to change. I would always just start with like drawing a picture. I'd start with the eyes and kind of build out. But something like Simpsons, they have a kind of a substructure. Like, you go, okay, Lisa, to draw Lisa's head, you've got about like 8 circles. You got to start with the eye, then you circle, then you the head, and then another the bottom of her points of her hair, and then another one for the top of her points of her hair. So it's quite a it's quite a process. So that took me a bit of time to change my style and go, oh, okay, this is how I actually kind of need to work to draw like that. The other thing, I guess, as well, is like, because you're not just drawing the characters, people can draw, like, if you don't try to draw the Simpsons, you go, oh, that's a bit wonky. Oh, that's not bad. But then you try to draw it, like, you go, well, okay, now you've got to draw Homer from a 45-degree angle from behind, or that kind of thing. So fortunately, there's lots of reference and stuff like that. But
well, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. And same with Rick and Morty. I think as I've got better over time, Rick and Morty is it's a style that suits me well, that I feel comfortable with, and so over time I felt like I've got better and better with drawing those characters. And in saying that, there's blowback as well, because you start to you're drawing this stuff all the time, so then it filters into your own style. So something like Death Metal Emo Elves, it's a little bit Simpsons, a little bit Rick and Morty, because it's just Death Metal Emo Elves is how I draw, but you can't help but be influenced back when you're pushing that out in that direction, if you know what I mean.
No, I do. I think it's like when you're reading a book, or you're reading a few books in a particular genre and you're writing. Absolutely. I really feel like it influences my writing, whatever I'm reading at the moment. When I sit down it takes a turn, whatever it is that I'm reading.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
And that's the beauty about it. You're not we're not stealing anything. We actually like just going through our personal filter and coming through us in another way.
Yeah.
So
that's incredible.
So that's how that's how like sort of comics work. And it's very, sometimes you'll have like a penciler, and sometimes you'll have an inker and a colorist, because they have to come out monthly.
Gosh.
Often have to come out monthly.
So much work.
Yeah.
That's incredible. What an incredible story, and like sort of something that I didn't know anything about. So I've always wanted to ask that question. If you,
no,
I'm a bit sad there's no Rick and Morty school, but that's fine.
Yeah, no Rick and Morty school. Yeah.
But
because no one's ever said to me you should be more on model. Can you please draw more on model? No one's ever said to me, but I've chosen to try to be on model.
To do that. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Hi everyone, my name is Emma Pignatello, and I'm the author of Last Shot, which comes out on the 28th of January with Penguin Random House Australia. I'm very grateful to Madeline and Tina for this opportunity to tell you all a little bit about my debut novel. So Last Shot is an enemies to lovers romantic suspense novel based in a fictional town in the Margaret River region of Western Australia. And the premise is that someone is going to murder millionaire winemaker Giovanni Barbarani tomorrow night, and the only 2 people who can stop the murder from happening are ex-con Maxella Conrad and the Barbarani's loyal fixer Grayson Hawke. That is, if they don't kill each other first. If you're a fan of Lucy Score, Devney Perry and Catherine Cowles, and if you enjoy banter and twists and turns of plotlines and bedsheets, I think you will enjoy Last Shot. I wrote this story because it was simply something I wanted to read that I couldn't really find on the shelves. I remember looking at my towering to-be-read pile filled with romance novels and crime novels and not really feeling in the mood for either. So I thought, why can't we have both? And that's when I started to get really excited about a murder mystery romance with both kinds of guns, the weapons and the arm muscles. Thank you so much to Madeline and Tina for the chance to talk about Last Shot on the podcast. And good luck everyone with all your writing and publishing goals as you work towards that book deal.
So it's notoriously difficult to be accepted as both, or your work to be accepted where you're pitching to be both a illustrator and the writer as well. And
why is that?
I don't know, but you know, for a lot of maybe for the listeners who aren't in that space of, you know, children's books that are illustrated, it's so for those people who are author illustrators, often when you pitch, you're told only to pitch words always, like unless you're specific, or you're specifically just pitching yourself as an artist that you'd like a publisher to consider might fit particular books written by somebody else. But if you're trying to do both, like, so you're often asked, you know, only send the words, no illustrations with the submissions, don't even put like illustrator notes sometimes, and sometimes there's actually even nowhere to submit illustrations if there's like an online submissions form. And that can be because, you know, the publishers like to read something and, you know, make their own sort of idea of what they think would work, or they might know artists who they think would work with those words, or it's something just completely different. But so often, yeah, it's tricky. And so some of the questions that I had from author illustrated friends was just, how do you navigate this process? Like, how do you, I mean, at the moment you've nailed that. You can probably pitch anything you want, but do you have any advice for
Again, I've got my list of, you know, pineapple comes to pizza town.
Still waiting for pineapple. That's
so
right.
Maybe I'm doing it wrong. So I guess I'll just briefly talk about how I've had some things published, and I guess maybe the listener can glean, because what happens is, what I find is like a door opens and you go through it, right, and then it closes behind you, so you can't necessarily do the exact same thing. Someone else can't do the exact same thing that I did to pitch it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So the thing that's popping in my head isn't a writer illustrator thing. It was, so Brock the Croc, Adrian Beck, the author, we've been in contact for years. He said, well, we'd like to work together. Let's work together on something. And he said, oh, we've got this thing, would you do some character designs to go with the pitch? And so I drew those, I sent them in. He said, okay, great, here's the pitch. Is that, yeah, cool with that? I go, yeah. He sent it off and it was improved in 2 hours. Right?
So can I
ask?
I
don't know, is that because of him?
Yes.
Because of the story? Do the illustrations help? Does me being a part of that process because of what I've worked on help? Or, you know, so I don't know.
So you'll never know. Did he send it directly to a publisher? Did you know? So he had like an inroad there, so he sort of had that ability
before.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know what the so that's how that worked. Then it was something like, so Pineapple Comes to Pizza Town, for instance. You're right, there's not normally a place for illustrations, but if there's normally a place for it, you send the PDF off. So I have a cover that I've drawn for that I send off to give it a sense of the story. I struggle because I do both. I struggle with just sending off the illustration, and I have. And so something like Death Metal Emo Elves, I sent to multiple places who I thought would be reasonably open to it, who do those kind of books without illustrations originally, and everybody said no. So then I added illustration, I started illustrating it, and then they said yes. Was that just because of the time or the luck of it? But I just think that illustrating is such a part of me and so important in my storytelling process that I can't imagine not putting in.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, something like Mr. Snitch is a Witch, that was so great to score that. So Mrs. Smith is a picture book. So I guess the first picture book that I've written, or second kind of, that I haven't self-published, and that I'd sent that through again a number of publishers that I'd written and I'd drawn it, right, without a publisher, once again, and the publisher picked it up and basically said, because I think the reason they picked it up was because they had a certain amount of books that had to be sold or that ship out at a certain time, and it was over sort of Halloween, and they go, oh, that's a witch story, that would fit really nicely into it. So
Handy.
basically they had a book that was ready to go.
Yeah.
And I think
Yes.
they kind of
You're making it
liked that.
easy for them. Yeah, that's
I'm making
right.
it easy for them to go,
Yeah.
but it's a hell of a, but you can't just, it's a hell of a thing to be drawing your books constantly, because you
Yeah.
don't know what format they want to publish it in, and so
Yeah.
there have to be some changes to that as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I guess the other thing that I've been working on now is like, say, yeah, can you find the Easter Bunny? I've got Can You Find the Easter Bunny? I've got Can You Find the Piggies coming up?
Can you
which is
find the
about
peas?
Piggies? Can you
I
find the
said
piggies?
peas.
The piggies, pigs.
That'd be hard.
So I wrote that, but it's a Can You Find book. It's about the three little pigs. They're in they're in Pig Town, wherever they live, and they're sick of the wolf blowing their houses down. So they go, we have to get out of town. No, we have to get out of this fairy tale. So they employ the fairly good mother. She's not great, but she's fairly good, and very, very good. And she does a magical spell, and then so throughout they escape. So throughout the Can You Find, so each of the Can You Find spreads is a different fairy tale that they land in. So they land in Hamlin. So you got to find the pigs, and you go, oh, count the rats, and you got this kind of thing.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was a fun, great thing to work on. And right now I'm working on Can You Find the Christmas Elves?
Oh, nice.
So the way those came about is Scholastic contacted me and said, so it was the editor of Timmy the TikTok Pony had recommended me.
Wow.
Because they needed, so for this kind of thing, you don't really have, I'm writing them, but you don't really necessarily, like the writing is kind of very secondary to the illustrations. You need it to make sense.
Yeah.
So they kind of needed a theoretical writer in Illustrator for those books. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. So I can't, like, so do you see what I mean? So none of them specifically are, I'm a writer illustrator, and
yeah, I know what you mean.
My success has been random or because of being dogmatic outside of it and just going for it. So yeah, I guess a couple of those things I actually drew first, which I don't know if I would recommend. I'm not sure if I would. I want this to be a book.
Yep.
And if no one published it, I would have published it and just self-published it.
I love that. Yeah, it's because it's it's nice to make some money from it, but realistically, we do it because writing and illustrating, because it's in us and it's joyful and fun. And if you find joy in writing Death Metal Emo Elves, then you just got to do it. Just go. And if it gets published, that's kind of like a cherry on the top, isn't it?
I think so. And it is nice. I think, I really liked it, as opposed to self-publishing. I really like to be published because in some ways it says to me, validates it. Yeah. Someone else has seen the work and go, I believe in this.
Yes. And the publishers do a lot of work. It's just, I admire people who are self-published because just the work that goes on behind the scenes, like even now, like I'm experiencing that, with HarperCollins, and they have an amazing team, and there's still a lot of work that goes on, and you don't even know what it is that they're doing half the time, but it's because they've got all those industry sort of leads and contacts, and they know what to do. It's it's a lot of work. So
absolutely the Easter Bunny book I got, good news is being so it's being picked up by Canada or another Scholastic. So it's not just Scholastic Australia.
That's awesome.
That's the other thing as well, to go through a publisher. You get the international distribution.
Yes.
You can get royalties.
Yes.
Those kind of things are, really important because
really helpful.
We still got to pay the bills. So.
Yeah. Can I ask you a practical question, Dean? I think you just sort of touched on it before with sometimes you'll just draw like the cover art or something if you did want to submit illustrations with something that you've written. Do you suggest that? Just maybe do 1 or 2 sample pictures or some storyboards?
What do you reckon?
See, I don't know, because I don't like you're saying how like there's some specifically say don't include
At all.
illustrations.
Mm.
So I've never come across that specifically. So if I want to again, because I'm an illustrator, they need I want to if I'm planning on drawing it, I feel like they should have the opportunity to see how I would draw it. So
Yeah.
I would I think if it's say something like a picture book, if you're planning on drawing the picture book, then I say draw do at least the cover.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
that's just me. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to I don't want to lead anybody up the garden path and say this is how you do it, because I don't know how to do it over
Yeah.
my years, because then things change and I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
I just know that you need to be brave and you need to do it. But and maybe I guess as an illustrator, maybe you want to check with friends or family. You go if you'll go, maybe your illustration isn't up to scratch.
Or critique groups. Critique groups.
Maybe probably I don't I hate negative feedback. I struggle with accepting any kind of feedback on my work that I don't like.
Yeah.
But I think that so maybe that would be helpful to go. Maybe it's just not maybe how you draw characters isn't best served for this story, for instance.
Yeah.
I think that. Sorry.
I guess it can't hurt to include somewhere on your submissions that I also illustrate and would love to show you my work, because I think I've got stuff that would fit that.
Because there's like a portfolio link or something like that.
Yeah. Because the publishers are going to start looking, if they accept your words, they're going to start looking for the right illustrator for it, and you've got to at least at that point be like throwing your hat in the ring for that. Surely,
I think so. I think that's the goal. If you're a writer illustrator, you want to draw your own books. So, and I think but in the meantime, when you're still submitting stuff, you just have to be continuing to work on your art, and So, I don't know what the answer is. I say draw it. but
as you can.
I mean, unless you've got nothing else going, you might as well draw it.
That's right. Yep. That's really good advice. So obviously you're working on a lot of things, and this is writing and illustrating books is predominantly your predominant job. Except so you do work part-time, you were saying, but for many authors and illustrators, making enough money or getting any profit at all from their books or their illustrations is the dream.
It's really funny though. I think it doesn't like you've got some really successful authors. I think it's like Angela Slatter or something like it's incredibly great author and well known and published a lot, but she was doing classes and running classes and doing critiques. So everybody still seems to have a side gig, and that doesn't get talked about very much in the industry. It's almost like I hear people that go, "Oh, but I'm only doing this part time," like it's a bad thing. Like you haven't quite made it. I'm not quite cutting it, because and I think it's getting harder and harder to be creative, and I think the side hustle isn't. I don't know. It's just part of life, I just think so. Yes, I mentioned that I have a 12-hour-a-week job that I work on an outreach needle and syringe program. Drive around at night, give out cleaning injecting equipment. I've done it for 24 years. I don't. Some days I struggle with it. Most days, evenings, I don't dislike it. But also, so that pays my super. I've got it's a small amount of super. I've got a little bit of super. And these kind of things that has at least a steady amount of paycheck coming in. So I'm not anti the side gigs, because also that means maybe because of that side gig, if work comes in that I don't really want to do, they go, oh, I don't, it's not something that is, I don't know, maybe ethically that I'm really into, or it might just be something that I don't think I'm a particularly good fit, that I can say no to it. I don't have to take up everything, because I know, I have to still draw. I have to still to illustrate for money as well. But I don't feel quite as slave to the system if I've got options. So it's not. I don't know if it's all as bad as
No.
people think by going, oh yeah, I just want to be a full-time, of course we want to just do it, but
I think we just want to do our own thing and not have a
we
boss and
want
not
to help
like
with
have
that,
anyone like set an alarm and just work however we want to work. I
Yeah,
think that's probably more what it is. Do you think? Because
in some ways also that I it's like, and like looking at your work schedule, the I know how like it's how strict you have to be that I have to get this done. I work in between here and here, but kid stuff, all this kind of stuff that I have to work at.
Mhm.
I always like you're probably doing like being more productive in that period than if you had the whole day. Or
absolutely.
what, that you go, okay, I've got X amount of time, I'm going to work. I'm always
Yeah.
amazed. If I don't feel like working, I'll set an alarm for like 20 minutes, 30
Yes.
minutes,
Yes.
just as a start, like that Pomodoro technique to get
Yes.
moving. And I'm amazed with how much I can get done in 30 minutes.
I agree.
Like, to go, and like
Yeah.
I can procrastinate all day and go, once I actually
Yes.
start, I'm amazed.
Mhm.
So, yeah. So
Mhm.
I'm not sure if the dream is ultimately the best thing for us as creatives. You don't want to be
Yeah.
exhausted. You don't want to be like so exhausted that you can't work. But I think to have some boundaries, some time boundaries and stuff like that,
Yes.
like this whole, like, I don't know about you, this whole I'm oh, can you work when you're not inspired? Go, yeah, like of course I can. Like, they have this people who aren't working in the creative sphere kind of think, oh, you just sit around and drink some wine and think about inspiration, and then you dabble some paint on the page, and you go, it's just not how I operate, and it's not how I work. I'm very much I always think I'm like a mechanic. Like, okay, I'm break down. Okay, what I have to do, I can break it down. Okay, now I've got to do this and this and this and this and this.
Mhm.
This is my process. Also, it helps with my anxiety
Mhm.
as well.
Yep.
This is my latest. Actually, what now has become my thing, starting on Rick and Morty late last year. Okay, I'm so anxious about this blank page of. So you get the script, and then I do a thumbnail. I'm not sure if everybody knows what a thumbnail is. So you get the script. So then you do a thumbnail is you kind of break up really small. You break up the page, and you go, okay. So so Rick will stand there. So you choose your shots, like being a director.
Mhm.
Okay, so often, most comics start with an establishing shot to show the reader what's happening. So each shot is important. You choose your shots, right? About what's the best way to tell this story visually. You draw them really rough. Then I'll draw up all the page, like the panels. And then what I did, because I was so overwhelmed, I would go, I'm just going to draw Rick. So I draw Rick. I go, Rick's here. Rick's going to be standing here, and the next panel will be standing here. And I will draw Rick the entire thing. Only Rick. Rick, 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 Rick. Then I'll go, okay, now I'm going to draw Morty, 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 Morty. In the positions, because I know where they're going to be standing. Positions, and then I'll go, the whole thing. Then I'll put backgrounds in. I did this weird reverse thing until it's done. So my thinking is, you don't get anxious about this. You're just drawing Rick. You can draw Rick.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Mhm.
And so it's this game. It's kind of this game I play now about just getting through everything. You go, I'm just drawing one character, blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
And then when it comes to inking, so that's the black line that goes over the top. I don't start at the start of the comic and then go to the back. I'll choose, okay, I'm going to maybe on the last page, I'm going to do one panel. So you do one panel, and you go next panel. And then, so if I'm tired and I'm not doing my best, then I'm hoping that say if it's a panel that's a bit shaky, then I'll have these good panels around it, so it won't look quite as bad. You know what I mean? So, and then I'll just go through it. So this is how I break up my sort of workday and how I work. It's a very systematic about how I work, and not flowery. I don't drink tea and play watercolors. Not what I
No,
do.
no, oh, that's a shame. No, I didn't think that you did, though. I have to say to
Yeah.
but you got to do what works for you, and it's
I
practical,
know.
and it's treating it like a job. I remember someone saying once that they've been writing forever, and it wasn't until they started treating it like a job, which doesn't sound very romantic and like
No.
creative, does it? But
Yeah.
the reality is, if you start treating it like a job, as in like I'm going to show up for this every day between this time and try and get X amount of words down, for example, or drawings down, and that's when it really starts to sort of flow. And what's that saying? Is it like if you want something to get done, you give it to a busy person? Is that the
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah,
because
that's
I
it.
think
Yeah,
it's
and
true.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, and we all are. You know,
yeah.
but like some days I like it to be a little bit easier. You know,
Mm.
sometimes I do get anxious when there's too many deadlines or something like that, and
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, this publisher's going to ask you about this, and right now I'm still trying to get this work done on this thing.
yeah,
So that's
yes,
because you have to sometimes work on multiple things at once.
yeah,
That's a little bit of a hassle, but I still I like what I do, and I think it's okay to have your own process about how to go about doing things.
hmm
But but publishers is schedule. I mean, that's my
that's right.
don't miss deadlines.
Yeah,
That's
no,
my I don't
that's good advice.
I'm not the if you're a prima donna author, you go, oh no, I'm going to be another 12 months, so that maybe you can get away with that. But most they need that by that time. You get it done by that time.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people that are working on it, a huge amount of people that are working on it,
Absolutely.
and
They plan it like 12 months in advance. Like,
hmm hmm yeah,
you're looking
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But
I'm
things happen, don't they? Sometimes, and so it's not
Yeah,
not to
absolutely. Yeah,
freak
you
anyone
also
out.
be nice to yourself.
Yeah,
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 I've been
yeah.
last month. It's been very leisurely for me. I've like rocked up into the. I'm working on two things at once, but nothing's crazy. So
Mhm.
I don't.
That's
I
good.
I can just like okay, I'll work on a little bit in the
Yeah.
day, and it's been actually read a book. A little bit
Wow.
sometimes. I know
Wow.
it's unheard of. Like 2 years ago, I read two books because I just drew every day. But like I do draw every day. I do
Yeah.
draw every day,
hmm
even if I'm not doing a lot. Every day I'll go to the
Do
studio
a
and
bit
I'll
of
draw
something.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of it, treating it like a job, and when it does come to jobs and earning money,
Mm.
we've sort of touched on it before about sometimes just selling the actual product, like the book on the shelf. For many authors, that's not how they make the most,
Mm.
I guess, income in a year, but it can be from, um, you know, writing or illustrating related events and courses that they're running, or appearances, or things like that. Can you talk a little bit to that, because you do a lot of
Mm.
that, and school visits, and you do what, all the Comic Con fests and stuff, which
Yeah,
which
yeah,
I
yeah.
just think you just do for fun, really. Those
Yeah,
Comic
they're
Cons,
pretty
don't you? Yeah.
fun. You get away for the weekend, drink too much. So I've been very fortunate that I get to be get to be a guest at comic conventions. Um, so I guess I have to put a caveat on that as a warning. Don't tell anybody because I get my like flights accommodation covered for my interstate conventions. So I'm a guest, right? If you're going, so comic convention. I should talk about comic conventions. Comic conventions are a blast. People cosplay. There's stalls. There's artists. There's actors. There's voice actors from your favorite animated TV shows. So people will rock up, like there's a supernova, people will rock up. Well, I saw your Gold Coast supernova, is that right? That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So great day for the kids, everybody. I highly encourage anyone, if you've never done a convention before, to check it out.
They're fun.
So at conventions there's a thing called Artist Alley, and in Artist Alley you'll have comic creators. So more mainstream comic creators like I am, and then you'll have like independent comic creators, and also authors. So they'll have author guests who are there, and they'll be like at a booth normally. I think it's Supernova Gold Coast that time. They had the author from, is it Fourth Wing? Fourth Wing,
Yes. Yeah.
and I've never seen lines like it on.
Yeah.
She was so popular,
Mm.
incredibly popular. So you'll have like mainstream authors who'll be there, sort of selling books and signing books, but also as an independent author, or you can take your books. You buy a table for the weekend, or hire a table, and the idea is that you sell your stuff at the conventions. That can be tricky for an independent creator because big dreams about getting new readers. Um, uh, but it can be a hard gig because if your work isn't a well-known IP, then a lot of people might just walk past it.
Mm.
So people like a lot of money selling prints. They go, "Oh, here's my Deadpool print, for instance," and they'll draw. Here's my picture, and they'll sell that. So what I do is I do at conventions. I sell my comics and books that I've worked on, do signings. I'll do panels and stuff like that. Like people ask me about being a comic artist and illustrator. And I draw people like they're a Simpsons character as well, and I sort of draw their heads in jars like their Futurama. So that's been really good for me. So it's not an easy place to draw at a comic convention. Like some artists will do full commissions, like color commissions and stuff like that. I don't love to do that. It's not. I generally work now digitally. So when it comes to at a convention, something like that, it's the first time I've picked up a marker to draw in some time, often. But yeah, so I draw people like they're a Simpsons character. So yeah, and they come back with some money each time. So have a good time, go around the country. I've done some international conventions before. They're always a blast. You get to hang out with the famous people. That's really nice, and you get your name out there. I think it's really important. So that's one thing that I do. I think last year I did something like 15 conventions, because like regional towns and stuff like that are doing conventions now.
Yeah.
So that's really nice. I've seen parts of Australia that I would never have gone to before. Like I went to casino. Yeah, I didn't hear the casino. Who would have done that? And so the other thing I do is run workshops. So I've got going to be soon 3 booking services so libraries and schools can contact me. So how they look, a lot of authors, I'll do author talks, and I don't particularly enjoy author talks. For me, this is for me, because they'll put you up in the front of, I don't know, I've had some really bad experiences, like, I don't know, 200 year 7s who are not interested in your, even if you're drawing comics, they're not interested, right?
Yeah.
So what I've tried to convince my booking services that I don't want to do those, and say, okay, maximum of 70 young people, and I run a comic book workshop.
Yeah.
So I start with stick figures, and by the end of it, they've done their stick figures, and by the end, they've drawn their own comic page. And I find that, for me, much more fulfilling and much, I think, better for them as well. They'll try to get you to have a lot more students because it's more bang for their buck.
Yeah.
But I like it. Like, I just silly stuff, the silly ways that they can then generate ideas for characters. I do. It's a fun little session. So I did 34 of those last year.
Wow.
So that was, authors do more. I've heard of other,
That's a full-time job in itself, just
Well,
doing the
a lot of people find
workshops.
Book week goes for like
Book
6
week.
weeks.
Yeah. It does now, doesn't it? It's not just, it's 6 weeks instead of 4. Oh,
Any
well, hang on,
librarians,
week. It was 1 week, wasn't it? It goes,
any
I was just
librarians
thinking,
or teachers, just get us in at other times besides August, please. So that's been, money's great. I would like the booking services originally were saying, this is how much we charge. I think, oh my God, this is great.
yeah,
And I would never have done that, but now I can go, no, it's like,
that's the
this is
standard.
my minimum of amount of money that I would like during my for my session.
Yeah.
I'm an introvert. You wouldn't think so how much I've talked today, but I'm pretty introverted, and I find them enjoyable but draining.
Oh, I can imagine.
I'm kind of spent after the time, and I kind of think if I was like a theatre kid, if you're kind of like really like to perform, you'll do very well in that kind of context and have a good time. I was kind of a theatre kid, but I worked in the background, so it was like not. I find it, I like it, but I do find it tiring.
Yeah. I know what you mean, and I think though, because I see a lot of author talks as well, and I've seen the full spectrum of people who are basically clowns on the stage, which is great, and I've got so much energy, and then I've seen the complete opposite of people who are really quite quiet and just be themselves and just stand up there doing their thing. And I think that just some appeal to some and some just don't appeal to others, and I think I think it can actually be either way, and you're not going to appeal to every single person in you.
Find something.
You don't have to be a clown. I think a lot of people are a bit scared by that and think that's what you have to do to entertain the children, and it's not always that. Well, I'm hoping it's not that, because I can't be a clown.
I want it to have some. I want it to have some substance as well.
Yeah.
I want them to take, like, when you hear things like, this kid he doesn't really do anything. He likes comics, and I've had times when they go like the kid that like one kid who's really quiet, they continued working on their comic during recess afterwards. Those are the kinds of things that I find really important, and those are the things that go, you know what, as a kid, that's the kind of kid that I would have been. So it's, you know, not just engaging the gregarious kids, but the ones who are quiet and more contemplative. So yeah. Also, you know, mate, look, if I wasn't getting paid for it, I wouldn't do it. I don't want you to think it's altruism at all, but I think it is a good way. And I think in some ways, I think you'll find some authors basically that's what they're not writing for, but that's what they're actually generating their main income from doing author talks. That's where
Yes.
most of their money actually coming from, not the illustration part or the writing
The
part.
authoring
So I
part,
just find
yes.
it interesting. I just think, yeah, good as well. A good string to your bow if you can get it. So
Out of,
yeah.
yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you. So that's all really good tips. And but do you have like a number one top tip for authors or illustrators, or someone who wants to be an author illustrator? Like, what's your
Yeah.
number one top tip?
I think you need to be brave. You need to work hard, and you need to put yourself out there. And don't, you know, roll with those rejections. Work on your craft. I know there's like 5,000 things. Work on your craft in the meantime. But you know, don't. I'm not saying be rude, but you know, just go. You know, you can submit more than once. Unless they've said no, stop it. No
Yeah.
more submissions. You know, just submit again.
Yeah.
It might have like rolled, you know, there might have been a bad day from someone. You might find there's a different editor looking at it now. It's, you know, things change, are always changing. So yeah, don't think, okay, oh well, I was rejected by them, or I didn't hear back. I don't think there's anything wrong with circling back down the track. And yeah, you have to be stubborn. That's dogmatic,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I
Persistent,
think
and I was just saying follow up, because even just, you know, then that's the second time that they see your name, right? So then that's starting to, you know, maybe form in their mind a little bit,
that's
or just,
been
oh, I remember that
around.
name.
Yeah. I don't know what the answer. I mean, you need to have like someone on the other side of the fence is almost like a champion on your behalf, like someone who'll go, oh, actually, I believe in this book, I believe in this person. I know one. I don't know if it's bad to mention. I won't mention who it was, but I know one story I was told, that a recent picture book, that their friend basically walked it up to the editor inside. They must have another author said, you need to publish this book.
Wow.
You know, that, you know, you need to like have a look at this, and it's been rejected 1,000 times. And so it's like nothing is like, there's no clear rules. I think there's this, it's like this pulp series years ago I read. It's called The Stainless Steel Rat, and it's about this guy who's a thief, right? It is like being a rat. Like, you know, in the old days, you would be able to scuttle just through like wood and brick. But now in the future, if you're a rat, it's a stainless steel world that we live in. And so, and I kind of think about that as a lot when it comes to creatives. They go to stainless steel, and we're rats in the stainless steel world, and we have to be smart, and be creative about the way we promote ourselves, the way we get in. There's no clear thing, but you have to be tough. You will take the blows. This is going to be, you might have to cut this story, but okay, I guess that
No.
I'll tell you the story about working in Hollywood, and it's like that. It's like climbing a mountain of shit to get to a single rose, right? So you climb the mountain of shit, and by the time you get to the rose, you've lost all sense of smell. Right,
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I just, in
Great.
some ways, I think it's, you know,
Wow.
so I guess I'm philosophical about my success. You know, you go, I've done this, I really feel really proud. I've won these awards, I've done this, but I know what it's taken to get there. It's not to get there. So you're thankful, but it's not. You know, it hurts. You go, you know. In some ways, if you're not hurting, you're not doing it right, because there's a price to pay.
Yeah.
You know, so but yeah. to end on a positive note, still really great. Still, there's nothing I want to do other than I want to do. I just want to do this. I just want to play the game. I want to be good enough to be the worst and play the game. And if there's nothing, it's all I want to do. And if there's a price to pay, then I'm willing to pay it.
That's great. That's a great point to end on. Thank you, Dean. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
No worries. It was great. Great chatting.
Thank you for listening to the Book Deal podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the pod so you can receive updates as soon as our new eps drop. And to keep up to date with what the pod is doing, you can also find us on Instagram.